I'd like to introduce y'all to Mike Schnelle. Mike is our state extension specialist for ornamentals and floriculture. Mike, what are you going to tell us about selecting trees today?
I'd like to talk about a few common things that we can all look at when we're picking out a tree that'll help us to get the right one in terms of its health for our landscape.
Great.
I'd like to look at a redbud first if we can.
All right.
I picked this particular tree out because it has several good characteristics that we want when we're looking for that perfect tree or near perfect plant. First of all, take a look at the trunk. The trunk on this particular plant is quite straight, it's healthy, it's free of any mechanical damage or abrasions. And that's really important when we start thinking about possible entries for insect and disease problems, because that's a very common problem in the landscapes that we can avoid by first thing picking one with a healthy trunk.
Okay.
Come on up and look then. You'll notice, Sue, that the branches are pretty well spaced evenly. Now we have a couple that we may want to prune out later. And I might say, while we're talking about pruning, don't make a flush cut, but rather leave a small collar on these plants. And when you look at most of these trees, they will have a natural swelling right up against the trunk that if you cut outside of that, you'll give a lot of protection then for disease and insect entry into those plants.
It'll do a lot more quickly, I understand.
Yes, definitely.
Well, this is going to make a nice shaped tree, but it looks like you have one over here that's kind of asymmetric.
Yeah, we're looking at a sycamore here, or London plane tree to be exact. It's a hybrid, and one of its parents are the common sycamore that grows here in Oklahoma. It's a little more desirable, I might go ahead and mention, because it is more resistant than to anthracnose, which is a disease problem that we get sometimes in wet seasons or in the springtime. It does have a problem here in terms of the leader needs a little work to give it some guidance. And one thing we can do is take a strong piece of paper or cardboard and make a collar and staple that and let that become a little more erect and guide that.
So let this one of these two new shoots here become the new
Choose that as a leader.
Now, when in doing that, would you want to bend these down so they don't overgrow this part, or will they pick up and get taller than these?
Eventually, we may have to cut back these to allow for the dominant shoot here. Right. But after you prune this, you'll notice there's some dead wood here. I think you're going to be okay as long as you get this one on its road to being the leader. Also, it has a few other problems in just its symmetry, but it would still come out of it with age, I think.
Okay. Now, I notice this one has a protective collar around it. You see a lot of trees shipped that way now to prevent that abrasion you were talking about.
Right. A good thing I might mention on the collars, if possible, if the grower will allow you, you may want to look what you're buying after it's uncovered. A lot of times that will hide problems that you can go home and find later. So it's a good thing to look at that trunk underneath of this, any type of protection it may have, and then buy the plant.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. Now, what's the story on this birch here?
White birch or other birches, sometimes we have problems in Oklahoma, Sue. And a couple things I'd like to say is if you try to attempt a birch, you need to realize that birch borers may be a problem, as well as excessive heat in our Oklahoma summers. Now also, birches can suffer in the wintertime when the ground is frozen, but we get a quick warm up and the plant starts to transpire and can't pick up water then from the soil. It will desiccate or get a burn up here at the top of the plant and be quite unsightly then for a season or two afterwards. That's quite common.
Now, our native river birches don't have, they're pretty tough trees.
River birch are a tough tree, and they're quite appropriate for this era, Betula nigra.
A lot of people do love the white birches and such. So
you can go ahead and try them, I just try to encourage people to be aware of the problems that they may encounter with that particular birch.
Okay. Now, so many trees in the nursery now are in containers. Can you tell us a little bit of your opinions on container-grown plants versus bare root?
I would think for a homeowner that's wanting the least amount of problems, if they would go with a container-grown plant. But let me mention, Sue, if you'll notice down here, we don't really have any circling or large roots that are coming up and starting to circle this mother trunk, if you will.
So it's not overcrowded?
It's not overcrowded. That's an important thing to look at because you can get girdling, if not now, later in years to come. And if you just buy one right off the bat that doesn't have that problem, you'll save yourself a lot of problems and possible replacement of a plant 5-10 years down the road.
Great. Okay, well, Mike, thank you for visiting with us. I know we'll probably have you back on Oklahoma Gardening again from time to time. Appreciate your advice on tree shopping.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.